welcome to Wellness Wednesdays with Stephanie. My name is Stephanie Buckland. I'll be your host today, and I am delighted to be interviewing Jeanette Nunez, also known by Jeanette Grindon today. And thank you so much for coming and joining me today, Jeanette. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, Stephanie.
Absolutely.
I've been wanting to share this information more formally, and this is like a first step in that direction.
Yay! So I'd love for you to give our audience a little introduction of what you've been up to in the world and what kind of magic you're making.
All right. Well, my magic, I guess, right now is a personal story. But it's also something that I share whenever I can. And because it's helped me so much. It has really changed my life. It's changed the trajectory of my health. And it's going on about 7 years now. I discovered medical medium information in books in about 2017 when I was living in Texas and was kind of experiencing like a little bit of a perfect storm with my health. And I can go into like some of the factors of that later. But I really felt like it was kind of an angelic presentation of this information. I don't even really remember like where I first saw, like, what is that? What is medical medium? What is, but I just really latched onto it and felt like, what is this? I have to explore this. And at the time he had written, this is Anthony William. He's the one who writes the medical medium books. The information does come through a presence that he calls spirit of compassion. And this information just came to me. I just dived into it. I bought every book that he had written at that time, which I think was about 3 books. His first book, the thyroid healing book, and I think the life-changing foods book had been written at that time. So I just dove into those. I just sat and read for days and just absorbed it all. It explained every health condition, every health symptom, everything I'd ever experienced in my life. And I thought I was a fairly healthy person in the past. But it made me realize I wasn't as healthy as I thought. So I kind of took me about 6 months to kind of begin to really implement a lot of the protocols. Here's my bird. So we'll introduce her now. This is Miss Blue. She's kind of, it's not quite picking up on her with the camera, but so if you hear her and see her, she's a blue baker. And she's a lot of fun. She talks, but why is the video not seeing you, Miss Blue? There we go. And so it took me about 6 months to really feel ready. I was doing a lot of diets and supplements and things like that that were actually contributing to my problems. I didn't realize. I thought I was trying all these things, to help myself. But so I kind of moved away from those, which those included like autoimmune paleo type of diet, high protein, high fat, lots of eggs in my diet. And so I started moving away from that, started doing so one of the big things that he's really known for, but it's certainly not his only healing tool, is of course the celery juice. I'm sure you've probably heard about people drinking celery juice. I started, I think, incorporating more like taking out some of the no foods at first and drinking the celery juice, bringing in some of the healing foods, taking out the no foods. And then it wasn't until about 6 months after that I felt like I was ready to really like jump into one of his cleanses. And that was just kind of an instinctual, I just felt like my body was ready. And then I'm going to grab one of the books. This is the thyroid healing book.
Okay.
I was having a lot of thyroid problems during that time, like a thyroiditis. And so this is where he talks a lot about the 28-day cleanse, which is basically a 28-day raw food with a little bit of, you can have a few like cooked steamed vegetables alongside of that. And I did that. I didn't do it perfect. I didn't, I cheated, but I did it well enough that it really turned my symptoms around. It even made my hair start coming in gray.
Wow.
So I consider this stuff like a beauty tool also.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Right on. Yeah, so I would love to hear about a little bit about those health challenges that you were having back then that just got shaken up by this lifestyle change.
It really was. I call it like a perfect storm. And he talks about, he calls it death by 1,000 cuts. And it's basically all the little influences, be it diet, poor supplements, stress, adrenaline, of course, the biggest factors, he says in our health are viral load, bacterial conditions, and toxins and heavy metals and exposures. So I had all of those things going on. I just had a baby, my 4th child, when I was 43. And, it was super taxing on my body. That my adrenals just tanked. I started getting all the fatigue and like a neurological fatigue, he calls it. And it's more of a fatigue in your nerves that affect your muscles, kind of like fibromyalgia, symptoms. Fatigue. I just started my kidneys. I had a long history of my kidneys, and I'll tell you more about that. But I got a kidney stone again for the second time during that period. I got a terrible flu that I couldn't shake for like 2 weeks, just in bed for 2 weeks, hallucinating fevers, I just really felt like my immune system was tanking,
Yeah.
And right after that flu and I was starting to heal, that's when I found this information. It was just within days of starting to get on the mend a little bit. So, but then in my health history was, I had like a lot of bladder infections my whole life, yeast infections my whole life, kidney involvement, kidney infections. I had kidney surgery when I was 5, for a blocked ureter. And, this is like dating, I don't care, 1975. So I was in the hospital for like a week, as a 5-year-old. I was put on tons of antibiotics, prophylactic antibiotics after the surgery. I was probably on antibiotics before the surgery.
My goodness.
Ear infections, like I was famous for ear infections on Christmas, holidays. I love to get all my conditions on holidays. And you know what? I think I realize now that I believe is connected to like the stress and the adrenaline that sometimes goes along, it can even be a good stress. But those things still affect us. So let's see, both times I had kidney infections or kidney stones was on Mother's Day. And then the latest one was on Christmas morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So all these things that I had just gotten so used to, I think is just being kind of my health history and thinking it was just, but I was still healthy. I used to exercise a lot. Used to run around a few marathons in the past in my 30s, used to exercise all the time. I just always thought I was healthy, but, when reading this, I realized so many little symptoms that we now take as just kind of being like, oh, normal. Oh, we just live with those, or everybody has that. Well, they're pathological.
Right. Yeah. Oh man. So it does sound like definitely a perfect storm. I think that stress is something that I've been very passionate about talking about. In fact, I wrote a blog about adrenal exhaustion because I was experiencing it myself. And I realized, like, wait a minute, I learned in college that I need stress management tools every single day. So stress is a huge factor
Yeah.
in a
Yes.
lot of our health challenges. Stress
Yeah.
can be one of the triggers. You're absolutely right. So, what do you think about medical medium? What do you think was like the most profound, like, aha moment that you had right in the beginning there?
Oh, right in the beginning. Right in the beginning, I think probably the most profound, and this relates to the stress too, was that I had to get out of an abusive relationship.
Oh, so your environment was toxic.
Yeah. Yeah, that was part of the conditions.
Yeah.
So, and that's getting me a little bit emotional right now. but really that probably is the strongest, where I just knew that had to happen. So
Wow.
that was part of removing the stress. But and I'd love for our conversation, if you'd like to kind of go down that like adrenal health, um, stress influences, we definitely can, because it is it's a really big issue affecting women right now,
Yeah.
especially. And it's it we as women, I've learned through this information, we really aren't supposed to handle stress. I know it sounds a little old fashioned, I will admit, but if you kind of go back to the hunter gatherer a little bit, like we weren't supposed to have those big fight or flight reactions. We weren't supposed to be, running from the the tiger or whatever they were trying to hunt. So I don't think that women's bodies really handle the stress very well. We just are we are supposed to be protected a little
Hmm.
bit. And that can even come from your own, your own practices, your own knowledge, you know what I mean, of protecting yourself. Like even for example, things like I used to love doing hot yoga and Bikram yoga, and I still love yoga, but I have eliminated that part of it because I've realized through reading and even now understanding my own body's response is that the heat, the very high heat, as part of that is really adrenaline producing.
Interesting.
Yeah. And as well as some of the practices right now around like cold therapies, they
Uh-huh.
are also kind of triggering the same thing. And that is why you feel so good afterwards. Because there's like 56 different blends, according to medical medium. There's like 56 different blends of adrenaline.
Oh,
And they
wow.
get released depending on the type of experience we're having. They get released in different, probably levels and concentrations, mixes. And that's why there can be like good stresses that can also, like if you're just like party, 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 woo, woo, all the time, that's also going to be as just as fatiguing
Oh, yeah.
as negative stresses. So he teaches you how to protect yourself. That's what, so I love this information so much, because even if I'm not, like, I'll be honest right now, I'm not being great about eliminating all the no foods and doing my celery juice every day, but I still have all these tools and information that I can bring into my life when I need it, and these things that I can protect myself. So I no longer do, I don't run like I used to, because that is also very adrenaline,
Mhm.
releasing.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's why you have sometimes, have you ever done any running? No,
Nope, not a runner.
I don't do it anymore either. But when I was, you hear people talk about you
The
get
runner's
like,
high.
huh? Yeah, like
Runner's
runner's
high.
high. And you know how you're running, and then it's hard, and it's struggle. There's a struggle at the first, and then you feel that like endorphin rush, and then you're like, okay, now I'm in the zone. Well, that is all those, hormones, adrenaline being released. And so I just have learned, to take those things out of my life to protect, my adrenals. And after having 4 kids, our adrenals are really, really hit, and women's
Oh yeah.
Our adrenals really, really take a hit. So
Just the stress of having babies, the physical part, and
yeah,
then
yeah,
the
it literally
emotional
hits.
part.
That's why some women have difficult labors, is that when it comes time to actually, you know, go into labor, push your body to push that baby out, it takes really strong adrenal function to do that. And so that's why sometimes women get, you know, they have labors that get stagnant, you know, they extend for many hours, you know, or, you know, I always felt so bad for women. I hear the story of, you know, they labored for 24 hours and then
Mhm.
had a C-section, you know. So it's those conditions, that's what leads up to that. It's just not having very strong adrenal glands. So we just have to really learn to protect them. You know, we were talking about our drinks earlier, and we both have kind of our healthy tea and coffee alternatives, but coffee is one of the things right now that is really hitting women hard.
Yep.
Uh,
I
yeah,
am so sensitive to caffeine. I have to be very, very careful. If I have coffee, I can have 1 cup of coffee. Otherwise, I won't sleep.
I can't even do. I really, and every now and then I test myself. It's not good, and I think, okay, you know, oh, I'm feeling good. I can have a cup of coffee. By 2 o'clock or so, I'm so jittery. I'm so anxious. And it just so each time I do that, it kind of goes longer in between, where I kind of
Yep.
forget what that feeling feels like a little bit, and then I'll do it and I'll be reminded like, oh, this feels awful, why do I do this?
Because
So
it's so yummy. It's hard to give up
you
coffee.
know, and the lovely like ritual. So like you have your tea this morning, but just that ritual of having something warm to sit down with and take a moment. But the coffee industry, you know, they have worked really hard to get women addicted to coffee. I like to, you know, bring that up because I feel like sometimes if there's just like that awareness of like, wow, I'm really being like marketed to, you know, it kind of, for me, it kind of helps me. I don't really like, I've always hated the feeling in my life of being addicted to anything. Like
Yep.
eating something so bad that I have to have it. And
Yep.
so I was drinking a ton of coffee, like during those times that I said I got very sick. And it was funny because even my kids, they would call me, like if I hadn't had my coffee back then, they would call me the coffee monster until like I had my coffee. And it's funny because in some of the like live talks and stuff that Anthony William does about coffee, or I think it's in his podcasts, and I can tell you about like all his podcasts also, but he refers to like it as the coffee monster. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really relate to that because my kids literally just made that up about me. So
Wow.
yeah.
So how do you think okay, I would love for you to share some of the tools and resources that have helped you the most.
Okay.
So whatever you want to share about your journey and how these things helped or give examples of how they helped, that would be awesome.
Well, the first thing I did, and he still sometimes talks about this resource, but it's called the Healing Path on the medicalmedium.com website. And it's kind of it's a great first place for people to go. I think I remember that it was like a multi-day step, but kind of a step-by-step of how to kind of begin with this information.
Hmm.
And I did do that back then. It's been a long time since I've revisited that, but I know that the resource is still out there. So I think that's what kind of got me into the baby steps of it, because it can feel a little overwhelming when,
Yeah.
especially when you look and there's like 8 books and where do I start? And that's one of the things I personally try to help people with too, is like, hey, if you need any guidance about, you know, where to start with this, because it can feel overwhelming. So that's a great place to start. And that's where I started. The books are a godsend. You can get a lot of this information on, you know, there's podcasts. These podcasts are on Apple. They're on SoundCloud. There's a ton of great information in those. I mean, if you're looking for specific information, then that's where I go to. Like, oh, I just want to remind myself, you know, about I don't know. There's a great one called Your Emotional Liver, and how the liver is involved in like emotional releases and memory, almost like So then I'll go listen to that one. But the books are really, I think that you really have to have them and read them in order to grasp like how the full picture about how to use this information.
Yeah.
And I've done that. So I think I have a very broad understanding now of this lifestyle. So that was the way I started. And then the books, I go back to the books all the time. I mean, here's my, my bookmarks, my multi bookmarks, and so I'm constantly referencing these also. And they're also have there's recipes, the cleanses, there's each one is kind of like a little cookbook also.
Oh, nice.
So there's recipes, and even those will give you inspiration for how to modify a recipe or something that's similar, kind of thing. So I use those a lot too. Those are probably my, and then of course I did do, and I have done his celery juice protocol. I usually will do it for like 2 weeks every day for a while, for just for a short period. I haven't been able to maintain like, I drink celery juice every day.
Right.
Just
I mean, just the expense of it, it
does get expensive.
Celery to do that.
It's a blend between this information is free. It's out there. There are so many resources. He puts information out for free all the time. You can find these books in the library a lot of the time. I always tell people, if you don't want to invest or you don't want to commit, go check out the public library. He intentionally gets them into libraries.
Right on. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So that part is free. I do feel like generally this information is free. I feel like you can heal this without, spending
without a huge investment, right?
Yeah. Celery every day does get expensive though.
Yeah. And I'm just getting into growing food.
Oh,
my partner, we have a little hydroponic system set up in the backyard, and it's adorable. And so right now we're regrowing celery from. That is so cool. You can do that. And we're regrowing romaine lettuce. Like, there's things that I learned just by the reels on Facebook. You can do this.
like 2 inches of it. Yeah. How's it doing? Is it growing well?
The celery just budded, so it's starting to grow. The romaine also is just like a teeny little bud, but it's working. And that's in the hydroponic thing. So it's being fed by water and nutrients. And I love this stuff. I love being able to see the change that can happen when you can grow your own food. And
it's more powerful than you realize.
Big time. I mean, we have when I first moved in, there was mint and thyme and rosemary and oregano and basil all growing in the backyard, and I was like,
really? It was already there?
I need some basil. And Danielle was like, we have some in the backyard, go get some. And I'm like, what?
I'm jealous. I love to garden too. I've had some success, but and I built this beautiful like raised bed. I worked so hard and moved so much dirt. And then we had it was like 2 years ago, and there was a squash bug problem that year, really bad. And then I was like, well, I know how to fix that. We'll get chickens again. Now my chickens eat everything I try to fix. So now I can only do like tree gardening. So I'm rethinking my yard and I just put in a mulberry tree. So I'm going to have to keep things up high where they can't get them, because they'll eat any fresh little sprout. Yeah. But so I wanted to mention, Anthony talks a lot about, he definitely advocates for having your own garden and eating, food straight from the garden. 2 things related to that are really amazing is that when you grow your own food, the food and it tailors itself for your needs by just going out and touching the food, being around, talking to it.
Absolutely. Yes.
Making contact. Your foods that you grow will start to kind of like micro tailor themselves to your nutritional needs. it can read your, this is amazing information. I mean, no one would never know this. Is it can read your body and it will kind of like grow to help you the most. Isn't that amazing?
Wow, that is
I
amazing.
know. I
Yes,
think
I sit out in the backyard all the time and I just sit there and look at the plants and talk to the plants and smile at them.
well, you're doing it that very instinctually. And it does, it is powerful.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's
I
so
mean,
amazing.
I remember the story of water and how water can hold memory.
Mm.
And it relates to everything. I mean, we are 70 to 90% water. So how much memory do you think the water in your body's holding? You know, and same goes for everything. It's like just sitting with a glass of juice and sending it love can
Mhm.
have power, and your digestive system will absorb it better because
Yeah.
you're in gratitude and in that love energy. Like there's just so much to energy that we don't even know as a society, but man, yeah, it can be powerful.
Sense it. That's amazing. Yeah. So the other thing about growing your own food and eating foods, not just, you don't have to necessarily grow, but even going to like a farmer's market and consuming foods that are pretty much like farm to table, directly from the farm and lightly washed. So what happens with our fruits and vegetables in the grocery store is they just get so washed that they lose this microflora that is on like leafy greens, the skin of apple. So this microflora, he calls them elevated biotics. And they are what is primarily responsible for our bodies producing our own B12. So these microflora, they make their way into our ileum. And there's like a little pocket or something right there in your ileum that then these microflora will kind of stay for a very long time. They produce probably not quite just B12, but like probably the foundation of what our body uses to make B12. So so that's just another like powerful little thing that you can know. And he says that just, if you went to like an apple farm one time years ago and you ate one apple off that tree, directly from that tree, that is an enormous amount of this microflora that then can go on to produce your B12 for years. So of course I try to get more than that, but it's just a good thing to know. Just kind of it's kind of ties in with like his wild foods too. He really loves wild foods. And so it's just a neat thing to know, as you're doing that and how important it is. And
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like we've just barely touched the surface of knowledge about our microbiome and how gut health plays into every other element of our lives. And that's something I'd love to dive into as well and just learn as much as I possibly can about the bacteria that is guiding my choices and living in my body.
yeah, and influencing your cravings too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
the viruses and bacteria that we have in our body really they can make decisions for us.
Yeah. So, I mean, you mentioned earlier the viral load and the toxins and the heavy metals and like the things that we are exposed to in our day-to-day lives that are so completely toxic and that can create such havoc in our bodies. Like, how come people don't know these things?
Well,
The environment and the food and the water, like we have no idea the chemicals that we're exposed to every day.
and there are forces out there that are trying to keep that information from us, because if we knew of a lot of the different influences, going back 100 years, if we knew what those were, there would be hell to pay.
Oh yeah.
It would be, he says, especially with mothers, that mothers would just revolt because of, seeing their children affected, seeing their kids sick, that there'd be so many people to sue.
Oh yeah. I'm just one simple thing. Yellow number 5.
Oh, okay. Now I'm red 40, like but I don't know
I
about
know, right? Yellow number 5. I had asthmatic issues in my early 20s, including chronic bronchitis. I lived with 5 cats and I'm allergic to dander, so it was reasonable that I was getting, allergy problems, but being sick all the time didn't make any sense. And it wasn't until I realized that I was creating my own suffering by eating foods that had chemicals in them that were adding to the asthmatic response. And so it was years later, I started cutting out food additives and food coloring and preservatives. And it made such an impact on my body. I avoid those stuff like the plague now. I will not consume any piece of candy for fear that it has some kind of food coloring in it that my body's going to respond to. Like things that I loved when I was a kid, red vines. Absolutely loved red vines. I can't eat them anymore. It's so sad, but I won't because I know what's in them. And it's like you can't unknow these things.
Yes. You know what? Oh man, I so relate to this information with that statement that you cannot unknow a lot of this.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So why what was the yellow 5? What did that particular
Well, so yellow number 5 is it encourages an asthmatic response in the body.
okay.
It encourages a histamine response in the body. So it'll increase asthmatic response. It will change your body. And if you eat too much of it, you'll just constantly have asthma because your body's like just trying to get rid of the chemicals that are stuck in the cells. And yeah, I live with kids and these kids are eating food that I will never ever I don't know if I can ever get them to stop eating it. So what do you do with kids?
It's so hard. It is so hard to not. I'm sure I would be much better and do much better with my diet if I wasn't also trying to feed children. It is hard. Yeah. It's just a reality that, yeah. And you know what? Okay. So on that note, so something that really is amazing about when you do follow a lot of the medical medium tools, your body gets to a place where it's not as inflamed and you don't have as much inflammation in your body. And then when you can maintain that, then you can kind of, these things don't affect you as much. You can have a bite of this, or you can have, a slice of pizza every now and then, and it doesn't affect me. I don't feel like a terrible gut reaction. I don't feel, and that's not really good, but it's life, it's reality.
Of course.
So I have found that the better I'm doing with some of the practices, that then some of those other really bad things don't affect me as much. And part of it is because he teaches you how to get these things out of your body. That is probably one of the most powerful pieces of this information, is that we know, that we're getting exposure in the air and it's in our food and it's being passed down through generations of heavy metals, mercury from the 1800s of the Mercury Man, using mercury elixirs, and that mercury is being passed down through us. So you can interrupt that cycle with this information, and you can use like the heavy metal detox smoothie is definitely his most powerful tool for removing heavy metals. And I also use that with my kids. I have a daughter who has an autism diagnosis, and she also has some symptoms that kind of tie into that, like dyslexia and some ADHD kind of stuff. And all of those are because of heavy metals in the central canal of the brain, the median. And so I learned that, so I started using this tool with her too. And I feel like she's growing out of her symptoms. That's kind of what I call it. And she's kind of overcoming her challenges as she gets older. And that, as well as like giving her some zinc and some B12, just having those tools that I can kind of bring in to her life. I feel like she's, when the time she gets an adult, I feel like these aren't going to plague her. She's still a quirky, amazing, creative kid, and that's not going to change because a lot of those kids are like that. But she's just not going to struggle as much, so really powerful. So that heavy metal detox smoothie is a really important tool for getting all these environmental toxins out of us, getting it out of your liver, And that's such a comforting feeling. You know, it's so easy to kind of let some of this information make you fearful, you know, about like all the exposures, all the things in the food. But then it's so powerful to go, well, that's okay, because I know how to get it out. So I don't have to be fearful.
Yeah.
It's very
Tools.
calming. Yeah, it's very reassuring. That's probably also one of the most powerful things that I believe in this information. And he just teaches you how to protect yourself. And
Awesome.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's probably
yeah,
one of the most important messages is like that we are exposed to toxins and chemicals and all these things in our lives, and we really do need to protect ourselves.
yeah,
We need tools.
yeah.
And
That's what he
you know,
calls
with
it. His he doesn't really call them protocols because there's no one protocol. You know, there's no medical medium protocol. There are so many different tools that you can bring into your life. You know, the foods, the wild foods, the supplements, if you choose to, just the information about protecting yourself. It's
yeah,
yeah, it's really powerful. I'll use this
understanding things, understanding how things process in the body and how things break down. And oh yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, do you have anything else you'd like to share?
Well, I want to share something kind of along the protection line. This is something
Okay.
I share with a lot of friends, and is it talking about he's been talking a lot recently about blood draws, blood donations, how much that really can take so much out of us. Part of my perfect storm when I got so sick is I was donating blood pretty often. They were
Mhm.
calling me to come back in every 6 to 8 weeks. I was always slightly anemic throughout my life. You know, I always kind of believed in giving blood, and I would donate, but oftentimes I would get turned away because I was anemic. So so I was giving blood during that time. Well, he's really been talking a lot about that and the blood draws, and especially for people who are already sick. Most people already have some chronic illness symptoms, and then you know they go see their doctor, and oh well, let's do a blood panel, let's do this. Oh, we don't see anything, or oh, I need to explore this further. Okay, maybe you go to another specialist. Oh, okay, well let's let's do these tests. Oh,
Mhm.
no, it doesn't matter what your other doctor did. We're just going to do it again, or I need to see it this way, or whatever the doctors are telling you.
Right.
You can really get into a cycle of giving away too much of your blood, and your blood is your immune system. Outgo the red blood cells, outgo the white blood cells. Okay. You are giving away your immunity when you do
Wow.
that. And so he teaches, there's a podcast also on both of those platforms that I said earlier about, it's a little drastic. It's called like bloodletting. And he ties it into the days of bloodletting and how that connection didn't really go away completely with the
Hmm.
blood industry. But he teaches you tools, you know, like what limits should be set for yourself, depending on if you're well, if you're a woman, if you're a man. Have you been on your cycle recently? Where, you know, what factors that you should say, okay, I can only give, if I have to have blood drawn, I should only give 3 vials maximum. And then here are some things that you can do to protect yourself around that time also. Like
Hmm.
some things you can do before, things you can do after. So I really share this because I personally have known a few friends who had their lives have been taken earlier than it should be, mostly due to their cancer diagnosis. But once people who get that cancer diagnosis, they become a blood bag. They get their blood drawn so often.
Yeah.
So you really have to be able to say, no, I just gave blood, or I can only do this test right now. I'm going to have to wait 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And it's really powerful. And I really share it a lot because, like I said, I think I've had some friends that I know that that's what can, and it ended their life before it was supposed to. So it's, yeah, it's really, it's just really good information to know. So sometimes I come off as a little pushy. I know it because as soon as I hear a friend or someone getting a cancer diagnosis, I send them that information. And I say
I
this.
do too. I do the exact same thing. I have a couple of booklets that I've downloaded from different places One of them was messages from, oh man, I'm gonna have to find it. I'll include it. I'll include the link in the description, but messages from the doctors or
Mhm.
important messages from doctors.
Yeah.
It was written in like the 1940s and it's got such relevant information in it.
Mm.
And then there was something published by PCRM. It's like the cancer survival guide. It's got all these recipes in it and how to take care of your body and how to be aware of
Mhm.
um, different practices like stress management practices, staying happy, positive energy. All these things can have a really big impact on cancer healing and surviving.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
diagnoses going out right now, and children, are getting even affected even more. It just breaks my heart. I just have such a big heart for sick children. I just can't. So I will definitely share. Now, will I be able to post some links or send you some links to include also as
Oh,
resources?
absolutely. Yes. We will have all of those links in the
Everyone can look
description.
for that too. Yeah, because I'll,
Yes.
I'll
Oh yeah. And okay. And if somebody wanted to reach out to you, Jeanette, is there a way that you want them to reach you?
sure, they can email me. Yeah. So my email address is JNET, so like Jeanette, and then a different last name, Johnston, JOHNSTON @gmail.com. Yeah. And
Okay.
I also maintain a Spanish speaking like translation medical medium page on Facebook.
Oh, cool.
Because my husband is a primarily Spanish speaking person, and so early on I realized, well, this is really a lot of information to take in English. So I started this page. I think it has about 2,000 followers now, and I just take his posts and I just translate them through Google
In
Translate.
Spanish. That's
And then
awesome.
I post them, and then I also have this is the Principial in Spanish. It's limpiar para sanar. So I have this also as a resource in Spanish, but so that's just another little aspect of kind of the direction that it's gone.
Cool.
So I feel like, well, why, more than English speaking people need to be able to receive this information, so that's kind of how that started. So yeah, feel free. I'd love to answer questions and help people get on this road.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeanette. This has been very, very interesting and enlightening and all kinds of other adjectives I can't think of right now, but thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this is really fun. This is like I said, maybe this will be like my first step in kind of making a little more of a formal presentation of this information. It's a direction I've been wanting to go in for a long time. So
Yay.
thank you. Thank you, Sarah.